guys, welcome back to my channel. So today this is a very special video. I'm not talking about a new topic about literature or grammar or anything. I really want to talk about Christmas. So now I have noticed that you liked some other videos in which I collected some quotations or lines, verses, or some poetry concerning other topics, and I thought it could be beautiful to do something similar for Christmas, and so I decided to collect quotes and poems concerning this period of the year, with the meanings and the atmospheres that are connected to Christmas, but to this winter time in general. Last time, or better, last year, I made a video, it was a real lesson actually, about A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. You find it in my channel, obviously. But this year this is something completely different, and I hope you like it. I have chosen different quotations from different authors, and some of them are very famous, some others less famous, and we'll end up with a very beautiful poem we'll read together. So let's start with with William Shakespeare. So in Love's Labours he says, well, there are these two lines. They are very interesting. They are very simple actually. They could sound almost elementary, but there's a deep meaning behind these lines, and I really love them a lot. You can see my quotations on the screen as well while I'm talking, so it's easier also for you to follow me. Now, these two lines are: at Christmas I no more desire a rose than wishes snow in May's newfangled shows. Well, it's quite, you can say, well, that's quite easy, okay, it's quite elementary, because he says that he doesn't wish for a rose during winter, as well as he doesn't wish for snow during spring, okay, in spring, which is quite obvious, we can say, but let's see that from another point of view. Let's try to look deeper into it. Now, basically, he is saying that we all belong to the cycle of nature during the year and during life in general. And so, during the different seasons in life, during different seasons of the year too, we are surrounded by a specific atmosphere, and we belong to that atmosphere physically, mentally, psychologically, or emotionally, and in every possible way. So it's important, and it's instinctive, okay, to desire, to wish for what you can have at the moment, okay, because that's the moment of your life you are living, and you should be enjoying. So this is something you instinctively do, but it's also something you have to try to do, to wish for something you can have, because that's the moment to have it, to receive that, okay? And then you move on to to another moment of your life, and you can desire for something else, Now, second quotation. This is completely different, other atmosphere here. This is by Gilbert Keith Chesterton, taken from Brave New Family. And it's a little bit more philosophical, okay? It's could be also something we can actually think about. He says, Christmas is built upon a beautiful and intentional paradox, that the birth of the homeless should be celebrated in every home. Now, the paradox here, the juxtaposition, is that we celebrate, obviously, the birth of someone who didn't have a home, who didn't have anything actually, so Jesus. And we do that at home, okay, with our families and all our things. This is obviously an intentional paradox, he says, because talking about a homeless child will obviously emphasize the fact that on the other side we have our own homes and our own families and so on and so on. He also says it's beautiful. Why? Well, because in this case, if we consider that from this point of view, this could be useful to remember and to be more aware of what we have. To also maybe people who don't have so much, so poor people, maybe they just have their homes and their beloved ones, and they think they don't have anything because they don't have anything else. But considering and focusing on the life and the values of this birth, okay, this child who had nothing, they could feel that what they have is so much more, okay, so much more important. They are richer, okay, than they think they are. Obviously, this paradox can become negative, okay, if we consider Christmas from a more commercial point of view, okay, then the paradox isn't positive anymore. If we consider that we have on one side this homeless child, okay, poor child, and on the other side this sort of a obsession for present buying and having more and whatever. That's a negative paradox, okay, but that's another step, more modern, unfortunately. Okay, another change of atmosphere. George Eliot. Oh, we love George Eliot, don't we? This quotation here is taken from The Mill on the Floss, and it's very beautiful because it's a sort of a description. It depicts, okay, the atmosphere of Christmas, and he says so. Fine old Christmas, with the snowy hair and ruddy face, had done his duty that year in the noblest fashion, and had set off his rich gifts of warmth and colour with all the heightening contrast of frost and snow. That's very beautiful, okay, it creates the atmosphere. This Christmas, fine old Christmas, traditional Christmas, had done his duty, so he did his job very well that year, okay. The snow we had, this is typical, okay, the typical symbolism of Christmas, and ruddy face, a red face. So basically here the juxtaposition is between the gifts that Christmas gave, okay, which are warmth and color. So they are actually something that are connected with also, I know, red, fire, so all that kind of imagery, okay. And on the other side, snow, frost, okay, ice. The two things, the two opposites, this is also juxtaposition, okay. Before we talked about the paradox. Now we're talking again about a juxtaposition. This is quite common actually when we talk about Christmas, talking about dualisms. We find it also, I don't know, if you read things on social networks or whatever, so nowadays you can find posts which are completely opposite, okay, different from one another, very jolly and full of colors and well, parties and whatever on one side, and on the other side melancholy and a feeling of loneliness, sometimes intimacy, Well, that's why I think that Christmas, I think it is well known that Christmas magnifies, okay, feelings and emotions in general. So in this moment, which is a very emotional moment, in which also are connected to our memories of the past, it's quite normal that nostalgic feelings are developed. Are focused on, and we are actually feeling them, they are overwhelming sometimes. On the other side, there is a celebration, colors and music and presents and parties and so on and so on. And we feel that we are forced to be happy. So this is a sort of a juxtaposition which is very normal also nowadays, okay? It's quite common and people feel that and talk about that all the time. The feelings concerning Christmas are always opposite if you think about that. So there are a lot of dualisms there. Now, Eliot talks about that in a very simple way, showing the juxtaposition between the colors, basically, okay, between the temperature on one side, warmth and warm colors too, on the other side, ice and white and frosty colors. So this is also very interesting, beautiful. Oh, now this is very famous. I'm sure you all know this quotation. I don't even read who wrote that because you will recognize that. It's very, very simple. I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. Who said that? Yes, that's right. Okay, Charles Dickens wrote that in A Christmas Carol. It's very simple because it's absolutely elementary, but basically it contains the whole meaning of Christmas. Okay, so not just being good on one day of the year, okay, but trying to get in touch with an emotional side of yourself and then keep it all the year. It's quite famous actually. Oh well, the next quotation is taken from How the Grinch Stole Christmas, okay, by Dr. Seuss, and it's quite connected to what we said before about paradox. What if Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store? What if Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more? So that's obviously sarcastic, okay? It says, what if we are so concentrated on stores, on presents, or things to buy or whatever, and we forget about the true values of Christmas. Christmas is about a lot more than buying presents. This is the paradox we talked about before, sorry, because Chesterton talked about that beautiful paradox of the juxtaposition between the homeless child and having a home, and I said, okay, there is a more modern, contemporary paradox that isn't so good, okay, and it's the juxtaposition between a child who had nothing, okay, poor child on one side, and buying things on the other side, shopping, okay, wild shopping on the other side, which is fine. I mean, I have nothing against presents, not at all. So if you want, I'm just joking, but actually the two things have to coexist, okay, have to coexist. It can become a sort of a, I don't know, a commercial obsession, because if it becomes so, it will lose completely the meaning of Christmas itself. Next quotation is taken from the diaries written by Laura Ingalls Wilder. Okay, we know her because all of us know the TV show, the series Little House on the Prairie, but actually she was an amazing writer. And the series was obviously adapted and taken and inspired by her diaries. And in her books, in her diaries, she wrote, something very beautiful, very tender actually. It's not different from what Dickens said, but it's more developed. She said, "Our hearts grow tender with childhood memories and love of kindred. And we are better throughout the year for having in spirit become child again at Christmas time. This is basically what Dickens said, okay, about keeping it, so Christmas, all the year. It's basically the same thing, but she explains it a little bit better and more in details, and she connects that feeling especially with the childhood memories, or anyway going back to the way we felt when we were children, okay, and then keeping that feeling of childhood, okay, throughout the year. Oh, this is by Ernest Hemingway and his collection, 88 poems. It's quite, I like it. It's, if my Valentine you won't be, I'll hang myself on your Christmas tree. Well, this is quite even quite funny, okay, and it shows absolutely a great resolution, because I mean, if my Valentine you won't be, okay, it means in February. I'll hang myself on your Christmas tree, it means next December, so it's almost a year later. And it's also a way to, he puts together two festivities which are actually very different in spirit, and he does it in a very light and ironic way, and it's actually very sweet and funny at the same time. And then, okay, this is a feeling that is quite common. I'm quite familiar with this because I read it all the time. This is something that Garrison Keillor wrote, an American writer, in Leaving Home. He says, "A lovely thing about Christmas is that it's compulsory, like a thunderstorm, and we all go through it together." This is obviously quite funny, it's quite sarcastic, it's quite ironic, and he is right. I mean, Christmas is compulsory. You cannot decide to avoid it, to skip Christmas. Okay, there are, I mean, some years we are really keen, we are really, we want to celebrate Christmas, we are ready for that, and we are so happy to do that. There are years in which, for many different personal reasons, we don't want to celebrate Christmas, but we have no alternatives, okay? You have to do it. It's just compulsory. You can't just skip it. And it is like a thunderstorm. It arrives whether you're ready or not, and you have to face it, and everyone have to face it together. So it's, anyway, there is an idea of community here. Okay. Now, last but not least, I'd like to read with you a very beautiful poem. I like it very much. It's very simple. It was written by Robert Luis Stevenson. We talk about Stevenson a lot in my videos because we know that he was one of the most representative authors of the Victorian age. I made a lot of references talking about, obviously, the Victorian era, and we also have specific videos talking about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. This is something completely different. He describes wintertime. This is also the title of the poem. He describes wintertime, so it's quite universal because it's not absolutely religious. It's more about we can say this period of the year and nature and the way we feel it, and this is quite common for everyone to feel like this and to share. I'll read that, okay, stanza by stanza, and we talk about that. Late lies the wintry sun abed, a frosty fiery sleepy head, blinks but an hour or two, and then a blood-red orange sets again. He's talking about the sun, obviously. The sun, the wintry sun, the sun in winter that rises quite late, okay, late rise, and the sleep he had, because obviously it's not the bright sun you have in spring or in summer, so it's a sort of a sleepy head, the frosty, okay, because of the cold weather, the cold atmosphere, and he blinks, okay, so the sun is awake for a couple of hours, and then this blood red orange, okay, sets again. So obviously light doesn't last long during winter. Before the stars have left the skies, at morning in the dark I rise, and shivering in my nakedness, by the cold candle bathe and dress. Now, this is something we all experience, okay, when we get up in winter and it is still dark outside, and so before the stars have left the sky, so before the sunrise. Morning in the dark I rise, obviously, and shivering, he shivers because it's cold in my nakedness, because he hasn't dressed yet, by the cold candle, okay, bathe and dress. So the cold candle is normally a symbol of warmth because of the fire, but actually just a candle, okay, in the winter can't be actually something warm, okay, it is cold. Close by the jolly fire I sit, to warm my frozen bones a bit, or with the reindeer's sled explore the colder countries round the door. Okay, the rhymes here are quite easy, okay, to follow. It's he sits, okay, next to the fire, okay, the jolly fire. This is quite a typical image, okay, of not just Christmas, but winter in general, especially belonging to the northern countries, to warm my frozen bones a bit, obviously, okay. Or with the reindeer sled, this is typical, okay, it's typical Christmas of Santa Claus and whatever, so the reindeer sled, typical of the north too. He goes explore the colder countries round the door, so the other countries, okay, outside. When I go out, my nurse doth wrap me in the comforter cap. The cold wind burns my face and blows its frosty pepper up my nose. This is also a feeling we can relate to. Now, when he goes out, the nurse is usually also used for children, okay, and it's a figure that is that's quite recurring in literature. If you think about Barry, for example, Peter Pan, the typical patriarchal family during the Victorian age had a nurse normally, okay, so the nurse wraps him in comfortable and cap, okay, so something to keep him warm. But anyway, there is this cold wind on his face, and he blows his frosty pepper up his nose. You know, when you are breathing outside in the cold, and there is this itchy feeling, okay, like something itches your nostrils and your nose. It's a lot like pepper, okay, icy pepper, frosty pepper in this case. Black are my steps on silver sod, thick blows my frosty breath abroad, and tree and house and hill and lake are frosted like wedding cake. So it's a beautiful image. He walks on the ground that is silver, so there is a little bit of snow, but not that much. And you know that when snow isn't thick and you walk on it, it becomes black, it becomes dark. This is why black are my steps, my footprints actually on silver sod. Thick blows my frosty breath abroad, because when you breathe, obviously it's cold outside, you can see your white breath, okay, coming out of your nose and your mouth. And tree and house and hill and lake. This is also hill and lake. It's quite typical imagery also of romantic poetry that was actually quite before Stevenson. Let's think about Wordsworth, Lake District. It's a quite typical landscape, okay, and belonging to English ballads in general. And this is beautiful. Hill and lake are frosted like a wedding cake. This is an amazing metaphor. It's amazing, actually. The idea of the wedding cake has a great meaning. The symbolism is beautiful. Not just, obviously, the image is great because you imagine, okay, this landscape that is absolutely icy and covered with ice, so it's quite similar to a wedding cake that is covered with sugar, and it's white, obviously. But the wedding in general in literature has got a very specific meaning. Think about the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, for example, Coleridge. We are going back to Romanticism again. When the Ancient Mariner arrives and talks about his experience and the horrible fate of the human being who wants to defy nature, etc., etc., he does it during a wedding party. That's because the wedding has a very positive meaning. In that case, it was obviously a strong juxtaposition because it was a place and a party where people talked about the future together, about love, about life, fertility, okay? And he arrived talking about death, so that was the meaning. In this case, it's the other way around, it's the opposite, because the landscapes looks dead somehow because of snow, ice, black footprints. But no, on the other side it says no, it's like a wedding cake. So actually it's a promise of a new tomorrow, of a beautiful tomorrow, of a tomorrow of love, of life, of fertility. Okay, so this is absolutely a very beautiful metaphor and a very beautiful symbol, okay? And this symbol is almost a wish. And this is the wish I want to leave you, okay, for Christmas. I know you're following me from all over the world, but it doesn't matter what you believe or don't believe in. My message today is a great message of love, of peace. I know it could sound a bit rhetoric, but I believe that especially nowadays it is amazing to stop for a moment and think about what we have, think about other people, and think about our families. And just for a moment we can just smile and say we love life, we are lucky, and we love other people. I know it's quite elementary, it's quite naive what I'm saying, but sometimes we always talk about great symbolisms, about very deep philosophical matters, and for a moment it's so beautiful to get back to the basic values of our life. I'm wishing you health, I'm wishing you love, okay? I'm wishing you the love of people you love, and I'm wishing you to be happy. I'm thanking you for all your support. I'm thanking you for the amazing year we have spent together. Obviously, I won't stop uploading my videos, okay? There will be others, but I just want to use this this Christmas this Christmas video to tell you how much I appreciate your support, your love, and really Merry Christmas and a glorious New Year. Okay, thank you so very much. Bye.